countries are lining up to promote and start their own strategic Bitcoin reserves. Could this be the catalyst that pushes us over $1 million per coin this cycle? Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everyone. That's right. The bulls are in charge. And if you've been paying attention to the news, it looks like everything is going to be amazing for Bitcoin. Today, we're going to take a look at the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, for the people who have watched us on the live shows, you know that we've had discussions about it, but I haven't really talked about it just on my own for a video clip. So I wanted to do this because it seems that this is picking up steam a little bit faster, at least than I thought. So I figured, you know what, let's talk about this. Bitcoin reserve proposals hit global crescendo. Countries exploring strategic Bitcoin reserves. That's right, guys. You know, we hear a lot of talk about Trump, but we don't hear a lot of talk about what's going on in the rest of the world in terms of the Bitcoin strategic reserves and the opinions that are being expressed by the policymakers of those countries. So let's take a look. As we all know, Trump hinted at the possibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve prior to his election. And essentially, since then, multiple countries have been exploring Bitcoin as a possible hedge against inflation. So this is a little bit interesting because in the past, all we ever hear about is Bitcoin's volatility. Bitcoin is unpredictable. Bitcoin cannot be a hedge against inflation. So it seems the language is changing. Now, let's take a look at the countries that are talking about it. Number one, Germany. Christian Lindner, Germany's former federal finance minister, has pushed for the European Central Bank and the Bundesbank to consider adding Bitcoin to their reserves. Now, I'd be more inclined to believe that Germany would add, if this is to happen. I'd be more inclined to believe that Germany would do it over the ECB. The ECB, or I should say representatives of the ECB on more than one occasion have expressed just how much they hate Bitcoin and how desperately they're trying to implement their own digital prison money. So yeah, I wouldn't be pushing too hard for the ECB, although I wouldn't be surprised if an institution like that would eventually just bend the knee. The next country that we have is Hong Kong. That's right. Hong Kong is also exploring a strategic reserve. A Hong Kong lawmaker recently proposed incorporating Bitcoin into the country's fiscal reserve, suggesting the exchange fund could be used to purchase and hold Bitcoin long term. Next up, we have Poland. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this person's name, but essentially a right-wing libertarian politician in Poland has vowed to make Poland a crypto hub if elected president. I don't know how serious this is. I think that this one is a little bit more about just kind of coasting off of the hype. But again, right? We'll see what actually ends up happening. Next up, Russia apparently has become increasingly pro-crypto. Okay. I don't know what that means. Anyways, the country's finance minister has expressed concerns about Bitcoin's price volatility. There it is. We're not out of the woods yet. Suggesting that the proposal would only be viable if Bitcoin's price stabilizes over time. That's interesting because essentially Bitcoin's price is being measured by the fiat money printer, which has no end. So I don't know. That kind of seems like a catch-22. Maybe Russia's comments about adopting a strategic Bitcoin reserve are a bit of a nothing burger. I mean, look, we do know that, Russia has allied with China and has been using their payment network ever since they've been essentially banned from SWIFT. So that's not a surprise. We've heard lots of controversial, right? According to us in America, controversial comments, right, from Putin, essentially trying to reduce, America's presence on the world stage. So, I mean, look, it's a whole bunch of narrative wars. Is Russia actually being serious about this? Maybe. we'll have to see. Moving on to Japan. That's right. A member of Japan's opposition party recently asked the prime minister about the feasibility of creating a Bitcoin reserve. The prime minister acknowledged the discussion. He emphasized that Bitcoin's volatility would make it difficult to implement as a foreign exchange treasury asset in the near term. So there you go. We've got Japan citing the volatility issue. We've got Russia citing the volatility issue. And I think that is just a cop-out. As I just explained before, I mean, we're measuring Bitcoin's purchasing power against a meter stick that is constantly moving. I mean, I don't get how these are valid arguments, but I'm also not a politician, and I'm not being paid to see things one way or the other. So I don't know. Anyways. Most recently, we saw something come out of Switzerland. I've got this post from Zlock, and he's talking about here, Initiative BTC. The citizens of Switzerland will vote for the Swiss constitution to be changed, requiring the SNB to hold Bitcoin alongside gold as their reserves. So it looks like Switzerland has now come to the table as well. Okay. So we just went through all of these countries that are discussing strategic Bitcoin reserves after Donald Trump made the comment prior to the election. So look, what do I think about this, right? And what do you guys think about this? Like, do you actually think the strategic? I mean, look, it's a feel-good thing for me as a Bitcoiner. I mean, obviously, I want to believe this, right? I want this to happen because as much as I do not support, I do not support massive government intervention, nor do I want a giant government body owning and accumulating Bitcoin. The reality is that if we are true to the memes in some way, Bitcoin is for enemies. And as I've said multiple times before, that includes the enemies that we don't agree with, right? It's not just the enemies I'm okay with having, it's also the enemies I'm afraid to have, right? They are all going to have Bitcoin. And as well, we are all enemies in someone else's story. So, hey, the same thing works for us, right? We also want to have as much Bitcoin as we possibly can. So the question goes to this, right? Am I actually happy that governments are talking about strategic Bitcoin reserves? In all fairness, I am. I am happy that they are talking about strategic Bitcoin reserves. But as I just said, do I want governments accumulating Bitcoin? No, not necessarily. But I also understand it is part of the game theory. I think there's a very important distinction to be made between essentially applauding that game theory is playing out in real time and or people actively cheering for the state to purchase Bitcoin. And I don't remember which Bitcoiner it was that said this, but I do agree with it. I'd rather just accumulate my own Bitcoin. I don't really care about the state accumulating Bitcoin. And the other side of the coin on that one, no pun intended, the other side of the coin on that is that it serves our purpose of giving attention to Bitcoin. And the more people pay attention to Bitcoin, the more people are going to do research about it, and the more people are going to understand why Bitcoin is hard money. So it is a double-edged sword, right? I know it sounds maybe hypocritical, but it's like cheering the activity, but not necessarily cheering the player. I don't know. Anyways, guys, 2025 is already starting off with again, no pun intended, starting off with a bang. And yeah, I think the fireworks have only begun. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Guys, I'm going to catch you all next week. Take it easy.